Sawadee Kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our group learning program, and I'm going to guide you in a breathing mindfulness meditation session. Then I'm going to share with you Chapter 6 of our book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. Chapter 6 is the middle way, walking the middle way. This is a very simple teaching that you'll learn from the Buddha, but it's very profound in its application. You know, the Buddha has many different teachings, and they can be very deep and very meaningful as you're learning them, and sometimes can take many days, weeks, and even months to wrap your mind around some of his teachings. This isn't that type of teaching. This is a very simple, straightforward teaching. It'll probably take me all of about 15 or 20 minutes to teach it to you, and then the real power in it is when you're applying it in your day-to-day life. You're going to see real profound improvements as you implement this in your day-to-day life. So I'd like to welcome you to our class today, and at the same time invite you to join for our meditation. I'm going to start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. I'm going to come in with the guidance. Then there'll be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand the middle way. So if you'd like to join for meditation, maybe take a position, either seated, lying, or standing. These work really well for online learning. And then if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Otang Bhagavanhang Apivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Oto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะคะวะโพธังมะคะวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมะคะวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนัมสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสคาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโพโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone in class today, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or maybe you're listening or watching this on the replay. Welcome to all of you guys. Like I mentioned, today's class is all about Chapter 6, the middle way, walking the middle way. This is going to help you to understand a very simple, most basic teaching of the Buddha, but when you apply it, it's going to be very profound in your life, because this is the type of teaching that you can apply in all aspects of your life. There's no part of your life that you wouldn't be able to actually apply this to. You would like to be walking the middle way. But what does it mean to walk the middle way? You might hear this at different times related to the teachings of the Buddha. Walk the middle way, walk the middle way, come to the middle. What does it mean? What is he talking about? Well, there's this one time frame during his time where he was teaching that he was teaching a female ordained practitioner, and prior to her ordaining, she used to play a instrument that was a lute, a stringed instrument. And this individual was asking for guidance from the Buddha to be able to understand training the mind and how to progress on the path. And the Buddha asked her about her lute and this stringed instrument that she used to play. And he asked her if the string was really loose, how does the instrument play? And she was saying, it doesn't play very well. The tone isn't quite right because the string's too loose. And he said, well, what about when it's tuned really tightly? And she said, yeah, same thing. It doesn't actually play the way the instrument is intended to play. That doesn't play beautiful music. And he says, well, what about when you tune that instrument string right in the middle, perfectly in the middle? And she said, well, it plays beautiful music. It plays the way it's intended to play. And he said, the mind is the same way, that when you're holding on to things so tightly, it doesn't perform well. But if you're having things really loosely, it also doesn't perform well there either. So you need to bring the mind to the middle. We might refer to this as a balanced lifestyle. Sometimes people talk about this as a balanced lifestyle and living a balanced lifestyle. But what does that mean? It means coming to this middle where you're not holding things real tight and you're also not doing things real loose. And you can apply this in all parts of your life. So let me give you some examples to help illustrate this so you understand what it means to come to the middle. Let's just say that you had bought a new house. And now when you bought this brand new house, you had invested a lot of money and time and effort to purchase this house. And now you go around vacuuming the house 2 or 3 times a day. You're worried about every little piece of dust in the house. And, you're paying attention to every little scrape and thing that's on the house. And you're just obsessively working to take care of this house. This is holding on to the house too tight, right? But if you were on the other side, where you could care less what happens to this house and you didn't really maintain it and you really do things to be able to make sure it stayed nice, you wouldn't be able to be peaceful there either. On either side of this, your mind is not experiencing peace and joy. So you need to be able to come to the middle where you work to maintain your house, but you're not doing that obsessively. And you're going to need to bring that to the middle and balance that. Or let's just look at something maybe even related to the teachings of the Buddha, like practice of generosity. You guys have been learning about practicing generosity, giving and sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return. Well, if you gave excessively to various charitable organizations, you wouldn't have the things that you need. You wouldn't be able to meet your basic necessities to sustain life. But if you were never practicing generosity in any particular way, the mind would be quite selfish. So you need to be able to bring that to the middle and come to the middle way where you're able to give and share with others, but you also are maintaining the things that you need in order to be able to have food, clothing, shelter, medical care, and things of this nature. So you're going to need to even come to the middle way with things like the teachings of the Buddha, like pursuing the path to enlightenment. If you were reading 2 or 3 or 4 hours a day and you were meditating 2 or 3 or 4 hours a day and you were listening to, all kinds of videos and podcasts and things like this, and you were absorbed in this is the mind chasing after it. But if you never really paid attention to your mind and you weren't learning how to grow and develop on the path, that wouldn't be very beneficial for you either. So you need to come to the middle where you're gradually learning, you're gradually implementing the teachings, you're going out into the world and not just learning and training your mind with meditation and all the other teachings that the Buddha teaches, but you're spending time in social situations and you're attending to your career and professional life and things of this nature. So each one of these things need to come to the middle. It's almost like the analogy of the dials that I talk about, where if you had a sound system and you're trying to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, you would need to tweak these individual dials. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you to do, is to not hold on to things real tight, but not to do things loosely either. And you need to understand that as you find the middle way with each individual aspect of your life, whether it's personal life, professional life, whether it's any other specific aspect of your life, when you find the middle way, your mind's going to be peaceful and joyful. You're going to notice that it's almost like there's a breath of fresh air. Whereas if you were obsessively trying to clean your house, like I was talking about, you're going to have stress and anxiety as you're going around and doing that. And as you're just maybe on the other side of that, where you could care less about what's going on with your house, you wouldn't have peace and joy there either. But when you're maintaining your house and you're able to do a little bit of work here and there, and you have the house kind of situated the way you would like, and you're still able to balance all the other things that you're doing in your life, right there, you're going to have peace. You're going to have joy. It's almost like the mind takes a breath of fresh air. But as you're practicing this middle way and bringing your mind to the middle with any particular topic in your life, that middle is going to shift and it's going to change because of impermanence. So you might start walking out on this path towards a certain goal or a certain objective. And as you're walking on that path, things start to shift and change. So it's not like a straight line. Like once you find the middle, you're just locked into it and then you just plow forward, right? So let's just use that example of generosity. Let's just say somebody was quite wealthy, right? And let's just say they were donating $5,000 a month to an orphanage or something like this. Well, maybe that's what they're doing for several years, right? And now they've gotten used to sharing this $5,000 a year with, or $5,000 a month with this orphanage. Well, now, as that might be the middle for them at that particular time in their life, Well, now maybe things start to shift and change. Maybe their kids go to college. Maybe their parents are needing some medical care. Maybe there's other things that they need to attend to. Maybe even they lose their job or they take a salary reduction or something like this. So now they don't have as much disposable income anymore. So they can't continue to share that $5,000 because it's not the middle way for them. But if they continue to hold on to that sharing of $5,000, now they're going to deplete their resources. But if they swung all the way to the other side where they were doing zero and they weren't sharing anything with anybody, now they're not in the middle and their mind is selfish, right? So now this individual, if they're practicing the middle way and understanding that the middle way is going to change and it's going to shift, as they see these shifting changes in their life and shifting priorities, they might back off of that $5,000 and maybe they go down to $2,000 and they share $2,000 with this orphanage for a period of time. And that's because the middle way is shifting and changing and they need to be attentive to what they're doing in any particular aspect of their life. And this goes not only for generosity, but your personal and professional career, any relationships that you have. If you are spending an exorbitant amount of time with your friends and family, that's not going to allow you to attend to your career or your own personal things that you need to take care of. But if you are all the way on the other side, where you hardly ever spend any time with your friends and family, you're not going to have peace and joy there either. So when you come to the middle, you might spend a certain amount of time with your friends and family over a certain week or month or year, and that feels quite peaceful and quite joyful for you there. And then you need to understand that's going to change, right? Because again, if your parents needed help, you might need to increase the amount of time you spend with them. Or if your brothers and sisters need help, you might need to increase the amount of time you spend with them. But then you need to throttle that back and then maybe spend time with your life partner or your children or whoever else you're spending time with. Right. So this middle way is a way of helping you to understand that you need to apply balance in your life, that if you're on one side or the other, there's not going to be peace and joy there. And if you come to the middle, you'll be able to experience the peace and the joy. And the way that the Buddha helps you to understand how to get to this middle way is the Eightfold Path. That's what I taught you last week. When he was asked, what is the Eightfold Path? He describes that it's the Eightfold Path. That is the middle way. That's how to actually bring the mind to the middle. That's what you're dialing in, those dials to bring the mind into the middle. So when you're on either side of these things, then you're not actually practicing the middle way. So for example, let's just take one of these factors like right effort. Right? Right effort, if you guys can remember, is where you prevent unwholesome qualities from coming into the mind. You eliminate unwholesome qualities that are currently in the mind. You bring in wholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind, and any wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind, you support them, encourage them, and not allow them to fade. And it's the mindfulness or this awareness of mind that's going to allow you to apply the right effort. Where you see the unwholesome qualities, you need to apply the right effort to eliminate those out of the mind. And where you see with your mindfulness the wholesome qualities, you need to bring those into your mind, right? And support them, encourage them. Well, that would be the middle way. It's almost like a virus scanner, like looking over the hard drive of a computer. And it's just kind of sitting there in the background, just kind of like looking over the hard drive. And now whenever there's a virus that hits the hard drive, it quarantines it and cleans it up and gets it off the hard drive. Well, that's the same thing that your mindfulness and right effort is doing. Your mindfulness is just sitting there looking at the mind, being attentive to the mind. And now whenever it needs to eliminate an unwholesome quality or support and encourage a wholesome quality, it will apply the right effort to do that. So this is the middle way. But if you were obsessively doing this, where your mind was just obsessively looking at itself, then this isn't the middle way. But if you were on the other side where you could care less about what's going on in your mind and you were thoughtless about what was really happening, that's not the middle way. There's not going to be peace and joy on either side of that. So that's where you need to learn how to practice this mindfulness, where it just kind of overlooks the mind almost in the background, like a virus scanner overlooking your computer. And it's the same thing with all these other factors. These are bringing the mind to the middle, slowly but surely, as you bring your practice up to the Eightfold Path and then practice that for an extended period of time. That's what's going to slowly bring the mind towards the middle. But you can apply this understanding of the middle way to all aspects of your life. Like I was mentioning maintaining a house or relationships or practicing generosity or even pursuing the path to enlightenment. So any time your mind is not in the middle, that means that there's going to be discontentedness. The mind's not going to be comfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable. And all you need to do is look inward and figure out, well, where am I not in the middle? There's something here that the mind is not in the middle, because otherwise you wouldn't experience that uncomfortableness, that displeasure, that whatever uncomfortableness is in the mind's not in the middle on something. And you just need to look at whatever it is that you're focused on and figure out where the mind's not in the middle. It's going to be on one side or the other, and you can just gently bring the mind to the middle, applying right effort. So several years ago, there were some students that were asking me a lot of questions about the middle way and trying to understand it. So I wrote something that is meant to help people to understand how to practice the middle way and actually get to the middle. So I'm going to share that with you, and then I'm going to open up to any questions that you guys have related to this teaching or anything else. So this is what I wrote, and it's titled, Where is the Middle? If you observe the mind is experiencing happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria, sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, boredom, loneliness, shyness, jealousy, resentment, then move the mind to peacefulness, calmness, serenity, and contentedness with joy. This is the middle, where the mind is unaffected by discontent feelings. Because remember, those feelings that I just mentioned, those are conditioned feelings. Based on a condition, the mind is then going to be happy or excited. It's over here, yay, I'm so happy, oh my goodness, I'm so excited, yay. But then if you allow the mind to get excited about some conditional situation, when that condition doesn't exist anymore, it's going to swing to the other side. It's going to go to the painful feelings, the sadness, anger, and frustration, and all the others, because it's not getting its cravings, desires, attachments fulfilled. So it's the middle that is the peacefulness, where there's unconditioned joy, there's unconditioned happiness, where the mind can just be happy all the time. So here, the mind can reside in the present moment with singleness of mind, peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy permanently, as one nears closer and closer to enlightenment through training the mind. The mind will be focused, concentrated, have deep memorization with clarity of thought and no discontent feelings. The mind will be at ease. So this is how you'll know that the mind is in the middle, when you're experiencing those qualities. So while one is learning and practicing to attain this mental state permanently, anytime you observe the mind is not in the middle, experiencing discontentedness, pleasant feelings, painful feelings, feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant, actively apply right effort, eliminating unwholesome mental qualities and arising wholesome mental qualities to bring the mind to the middle, where it resides, only practicing singleness of mind, letting go of thoughts, feelings, and emotions that are unwholesome and discontent, bringing the mind to peacefulness, calmness, serenity, and contentedness with joy, so that the mind can be at ease. So this is where the middle is, where the mind is at ease. Anytime your mind's not in the middle, there's going to be stress, there's going to be anxiety, and that's what you need to be able to look at and look inward and be introspective to see what aspect of this decision that I'm about to make, what aspect of this task am I doing, what aspect of this thing that the mind is currently focused on am I not in the middle? And now bring the mind to the middle with right effort. It's your right mindfulness that's going to help you to see that you're not in the middle, but it's the right effort that's going to help you to bring it to the middle. And now, more and more, as you do that, the mind will start to stay there for longer and longer periods. But it's going to bounce out, it's going to jump around every once in a while. And that's where you need to be able to observe with your mindfulness that it's not in the middle, and now apply right effort to bring it to the middle. So this is everything that I have to share with you guys. I'm going to open up to questions to see what you guys would like to ask. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. You can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. If there's any aspect of this particular teaching, any aspect of your life that you would like to ask questions about, or anything else, because this chapter is kind of a short chapter. We just went through 3 chapters that were pretty deep. Chapter 3 about what is enlightenment, chapter 4, the Four Noble Truths, and then chapter 5, the Eightfold Path. Now you have this time frame to kind of really hone in on what the Buddha is teaching you and those teachings, and now applying this as well. So if you have questions, you can put those into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, or you can raise your hand in Zoom. And it looks like Adele or Adela or Joe has a question. Go ahead, guys. I'm not hearing any sound. Let me see. It might be on my side. Let's see. Apologize, guys. If you're hearing sound, for some reason I am not. Adela or Joe, are you guys there? Is anyone else hearing Adela or Joe? No? Okay. Adela or Joe, it looks like maybe your microphone's not working. I see that you're unmuted, but nobody's hearing you right now. Maybe you guys would like to work on that, and then I can come back to you another time. Or if you'd like to use the comment section, you have that available to you as well. Okay, it looks like Paul, you're up next. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, David. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
That's good. I thought I'd check. Anyhow, what I've noticed, observed recently during meditation is that I noticed that, first of all, I have an extremely busy mind, and that's because I'm just starting, but I'd say like 80 or 90% of my thoughts go to the future. When I notice my thoughts, and I, of course, cut them off, but I can see that the bulk of them, is about the future. And that is not something it's not a new discovery for me, but I guess it's just that I've noticed it more because of the meditation. And it's because that's the way I've been through my life, is that I'm obsessive in terms of planning. I'm an extreme planner, meaning I always try to, I'm a control freak. I try to anticipate the future and plan for it so that nothing ever goes wrong. And I almost pride myself on that, being able to, get it right the first time, because I'm planning. But of course, the downfall of that is that I'm never, I can't control that. Just wondered, David, is there any advice you can give for somebody who has a mind that is obsessively planning and, specific to that? Is there anything you can suggest there?
Sure. So there's no harm in doing planning. Having the mind in the present moment doesn't mean that you will never think about the future or that you will never think about the past. It means that the mind doesn't cling to these things, and it doesn't dwell there, and it doesn't form feelings based on these things. So if you're in the present moment and you're thinking about something in the future and you need to plan something in the future, there's no harm in doing that planning, but you're just not interested in clinging to those plans, so that when things change, because they will, because of impermanence, you're willing to change too, and you update your decision making based on the impermanence that has transpired. And you're also not clinging to this particular thing in longing, yearning for it to occur, so that way if it needs to not occur, if it doesn't occur, then you can reside peaceful and joyful. And then the same thing about the past. Even though you didn't ask about this, we'll just talk about it, because some people's minds dwell in the past. If you have certain thoughts and things that are happening in the past, and maybe you're forming feelings on this now in the present moment, you would like to understand that that's not what you would like to do. You're not interested in dwelling in the past, but thinking about the past, me and my sister have been talking recently, because my grandmother's getting closer and closer to dying. She's 102 years old, and her husband has been dead for 30 years. And, we were talking about my grandfather and, how close she is to him and things like this. We can talk about this, but we're not like, oh, I wish he was alive, and oh, it'd be so much better if he was here, and all these things. It's like, no, just remembering from the past rather than dwelling there or forming feelings on it or longing, yearning for it. So if your mind's thinking about the future and planning the future, fine, just plan that future. But then once you get to the point where the plan has been made, then you know, okay, the planning has stopped, and now you can continue forward in whatever you're doing in your day. And now if thoughts come up where you're trying to tweak these plans and your mind's becoming obsessive about it, that's where you notice that with your mindfulness, and then you apply an effort to cut that off. It's like, no. I've already done my planning. I'm going to stick with that. It's not time to plan right now. It's time to garden, and I'm going to do this gardening, right? And now you're doing this gardening, and now the mind's just constantly thinking about that plan and thinking about tweaking it while you're gardening it. You just keep cutting that off and cutting that off, bringing your mind back to the task that you're doing, which is gardening. And now let's just say you've been gardening for an hour or two and you're done with that. You go inside and you're getting a glass of water. And now if you're sitting down and you'd like to think about this plan some more, and maybe you'd like to tweak it some more, now you start thinking about the plan and you just do one thing at a time. And that's how you would like to do it, is that wherever you see your mind being obsessive about this plan, cut it off and cut it off and cut it off. And over time, your mind will get more and more trained to not do that.
Yeah, I guess that's it. That's the spiral I'm talking about, is that I plan, I overplan, I continuously plan. Mm-hmm. And so my thoughts are generally, like I say, 80-90% of the time, my thoughts are for the future that I'm trying to control and protect. From a very early age, my mother commented on my behavior as being like very protective of her, which she appreciated. She thought it was sweet, but it was too much. I was always worried about her safety. But now it's, later in life, it's my family. And every aspect of my life, I'm trying to, anticipate what could go wrong, mm-hmm. so that I compensate, so that I don't get burned. And I've got to find a way to moderate that to a point where, yes, I'm planning, but I'm not over planning. I'm not stressing out over getting it right always the first time.
Yeah, this is where you can have more and more confidence in the wisdom that you've accumulated as an adult, that you can make your plan, you can implement that plan, and then as you're walking forward with that plan, have confidence in your wisdom that should something come up, you will be able to handle it in that moment. But the idea of anticipating any little aspect of what may or may not happen, it's not logical, it's not feasible, because there's just too many variables. So you create your best plan and then you implement that, and then just have confidence that you'll be able to handle any kind of impermanence that comes up. Because this is part of the mind's craving, because it's trying to get things done a specific way, and it thinks it can only have pleasant feelings if it's done this way. So now the mind's obsessively planning to try to get that particular outcome, because it knows it can only have pleasant feelings if it gets things done that particular way. So you would like to get rid of all of that and walk into these situations with a plan, but understand that that plan can change as well. One of the best things you can do for this is, like, if you go on a holiday somewhere for a week or two, is don't actually plan anything other than your flights and your hotel if you're flying somewhere, and just have like 5 things, 10 things, however many things that you would like to do in that period of time. And then you just show up at the hotel, and now you just do things off of your list. And now maybe if you have an outdoor activity, you go do your outdoor activity. But now it starts raining, and even though you were planning to do a second outdoor activity, you're like, oh, can't do that. So now let's change and shift, and let's go do this indoor activity. And you can be fluid that way, because one of the things that people do from the West is when they go on holiday, they tend to plan every little aspect of what they're doing, and they get locked into that plan, and then one little impermanence comes along and now it throws off the whole thing, and they're uncomfortable with that. So if you get used to just having like 5, 8, 10 things that you're thinking of doing on this particular vacation, knowing you're not going to get to all of them, but you just kind of filter them in at an appropriate time when it makes sense, and you just kind of go with your vacation that way rather than having everything locked in. And you'll see that you actually have a lot more fun this way, because everything's always happening the way you would like it to happen. Because when you have this rigid plan and you try to, force yourself to follow this rigid plan, you might be sleepy, and now you've, planned out this theater event for the night that you're going to be sitting in this theater, and then you end up falling asleep in the theater and you don't get to enjoy the performance. Where if you would have just planned in the present moment, then you could have, maybe planned that theater event at another time when you're more alert and more awake. So you'll find that you actually have more fun doing it this way, but it'll feel odd because you're not used to doing it this way.
Yeah, I think the key word is confidence. I've got to somehow build confidence that I will be able to manage, even when I'm winging it and not following a rigid plan. I got to learn to do that. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, by following your guidance, I'll develop that confidence.
Yeah, work at it, and then let me know as you have more questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It looks like Adela has her question here in chat. She says, my question is around managing anxiety by using right effort. I have a job that requires me to speak to groups of people, and whenever I have to do that, I get anxious. It's come to the point where I take anxiety medication before meetings. I would like to get away from that. How can I apply right effort to manage this anxiety and come to a place of calmness? So Adela, you'll actually be able to get to a point where you eliminate the anxiety. You're not just managing it, you're actually eliminating it. The thing that you're experiencing here, most likely, we can talk in more detail if you like, because I would need to know all the ins and outs. But what it sounds to me is that this is your personal existence view, that you're wanting to be perceived by this audience in a certain way. And now when you're having to prepare for this group presentation, for example, this group discussion, your mind's worried about how the group is going to perceive you. And if that's the case, this is personal existence view. This is the first fetter where you need to be able to realize non-self and get rid of that. And this is in chapter 16. So there's no harm in you going to read that now if you'd like to read it. I'm going to be covering that when we get to that about 10 weeks from now. But you can read that now and start learning what personal existence view is. And there's proactive methods there that are going to teach you how to work on eliminating that. It's not going to be a quick fix, but it's a permanent fix that, yes, the Eightfold Path needs to be well underway. That's why I teach that here at the beginning of the group learning program. But we're going to start moving into other teachings here real soon. And when we get to chapter 16, it's all about dissolving the ego, because this is part of the ego, the mind wanting other people to perceive you a certain way. So if you read that and then implement those proactive methods, understanding it's going to be a long journey to be able to gradually wear that away. Over time, you'll be able to wear away personal existence view, and you won't have that anxiety anymore. So if you would like to read that and then let me know, you can always reach out to me privately and we can talk in more detail. But I'm almost certain it's personal existence view that is at play there. And that would be what you would like to work on to eliminate that particular pollution from the mind. And that's what's going to completely eliminate that anxiety from the mind. Julie is asking, Teacher David, it is quite hard to stay in the middle, same as Paul. I have a busy mind as well. I not only think of the future, but also the past, and it does impact me emotionally. Any suggestions to stop thinking too much? It's the same thing that I share with Paul, that when you see your mind going in those obsessive tailspins where it just keeps obsessively thinking about things over and over, you got to cut it. You got to cut it off. And that's why the meditation is so important. Focusing on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut it off and let it go and come back to the middle. Essentially, what you're doing is you're building an internal mechanism in the mind to be able to let go, because that's what the unenlightened mind doesn't know how to do. So you're exercising the mind, just like a muscle. You would exercise a muscle and it would get stronger and stronger, and you'd be able to do things with that muscle. That's what you're doing with the mind in meditation. This is why a lot of the meditation techniques that you see out there are actually taking your mind in the opposite direction of enlightenment, because they actually have you think about things. They will have you do counting or look at your thoughts, analyze your thoughts, observe your thoughts, welcome your thoughts in, look at them, and all these different things. That's not going to lead to enlightenment, because you need that internal mechanism to be able to cut off and let go. So whenever you see that your mind even is starting to lean towards that obsessive thinking, because you can see the warning signs because you've done it enough times now where you maybe have indulged in that obsessive thinking. Because once you get 5 or 10 minutes into that obsessive thinking, it's a lot harder to eliminate it. So with your mindfulness, if you can catch it where your mind's starting to lean in that direction, you can catch it a lot earlier, and it's a lot easier to bring the mind back to the middle and keep it there in the middle. So it's the same thing as you need to practice the Eightfold Path, practice it well, tune that in really closely, and then apply all those factors in your day-to-day life. That's the mindfulness and the right effort to cut off and let go. So if you're consistently doing all the practices to include meditation, you'll build up that internal mechanism to cut off and let go. And then more and more you can apply it in your day-to-day life. Understanding that even though we say cut it off and let it go, some of these things, it's going to be cut it off and 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 cut it off. And eventually the mind will let it go. The Buddha calls this maturing and release. The mind needs to mature and mature and mature before it will actually release a particular attachment. There's some attachments that took me 5 years to eliminate, right? I was just constantly cutting these things off, constantly proactively training the mind, constantly practicing the Eightfold Path. And, they didn't arise every single day. The times that those cravings would arise spread out farther and farther and farther. And this is how you can see that you're making progress. But there are some particular attachments that I didn't see in my mind for 6 months, even maybe close to a year. And then boom, they raised their head up. And I needed to cut them off at that moment, right? So you're going to need to cut off all these things. And this obsessive thoughts is part of the mind's clinging, that it is clinging to the past or clinging to the future. And where you see the mind doing that, even leaning in that direction, cut it off and let it go. And that's going to help keep the mind in the middle. Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions here. I don't see anything else. So what I'm going to do is just end class here by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and practice the teachings. Thank you for any support that you're helping me to be able to share these teachings with you. I really appreciate everyone supporting what I'm doing, or at least to supporting to the extent that you can. I really appreciate that. And at the same time, I'd like to invite you to our future classes, because next week I'm going to be in chapter 7. This is going to be all new content for you guys. Now we're going to be walking forward in the book, because so far we've been really paying a lot of attention to the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and all these things. But now next week we're going to be in chapter 7, which is the 5 precepts, a householder's guide to daily practice. This is 5 impactful decisions that you could make either wisely or unwisely, and it's going to produce either wholesome or unwholesome results for you. Now, some people that have maybe studied 5 precepts in other places, you might have heard people say that the Buddha taught no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, and no intoxicants. This isn't actually the teachings of the Buddha. That sounds like black and white. That sounds like rules and commandments. The Buddha actually doesn't teach that way. I'm going to share the original words of the Buddha on this important teaching of the 5 precepts, and I'm going to show you how to take these teachings that he's sharing with you and how to apply it in your day-to-day life with actual decisions that you're making in your day-to-day life. So I'm going to teach you the 5 precepts using the words of the Buddha, and then showing you how to relate it to day-to-day things that you're going to be encountering as an individual in today's society. So that's what we're going to be doing next week. And then, of course, on Wednesday, I'm going to be in the 3rd part of a 4-part series where I'm teaching Buddhist chanting. So if you'd like to learn Buddhist chanting, there's the 4-part series that I'm doing, and it's been recorded. So you're more than welcome to be able to learn Buddhist chanting with the series that I'm doing. So again, thank you all. I really appreciate your interest to learn and grow and develop on this path. And I'll be potentially seeing you in a future class. Have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Sawadee-khap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.